If you're a real estate agent and you're tired of cold calling, door knocking, and spending money on ads, then subscribe to this podcast. We discuss leveraging the power of YouTube for your real estate business and how these strategies earned us over $1 million in GCI our first year in real estate. My name is Levi Lascsak and my partner is Travis Plumb. Let's get started.
All right, so yes, all things YouTube and real estate, but also we're changing up a little bit today and talk a little bit about partnerships and teams in real estate as well, especially if you're going to be working on something like this on a YouTube channel. This is a question we get coming up quite a bit. People are always asking about what's going on with mine and Travis's partnership and how did that come about, and do we even like each other? No, we do like each other, but. And I'll just get into that story, just kind of give the overview real quick, and then we'll definitely open up to Q&A. So if you have any questions, all I can do is speak from our experience. I can't say that it's the best way to do it, and I just know that this has worked for us. We do work with a teams coach as well. So, ultimately how it started was I started the channel. And originally, I always kind of wanted a partner from the beginning. I think what I saw myself was making the move. I didn't necessarily get into real estate to get into the to get into the transactional side. I know I'm more than capable of doing that, and I've been in sales for 20 years. But for those that know any of the backstory, I had 3 major resets in my life where they pretty much took me down to zero. And whenever I had to evaluate myself before making the move into real estate, I had to ask myself, where did I go wrong? Especially this last time in 2020, whenever I had my last major reset, and I was 41 years old, and I had to ask myself, how do I start over without starting over at 41 years old? And then also, how did I end up getting myself in this position in the first place? How could it wasn't me. I never really stopped working. I've always been working, but if an outside force or event or something that comes in and it can just kind of shut down your business or yourself, why is that? Where did I go wrong? What happened? And I had to ask myself these tough questions, because before I made the move into real estate, I wanted to make sure that I did not get myself into that situation again. And what I realized was that I had not scaled myself accordingly. I had not put in the right systems and processes, and I had not even tried to, you could say, subcontract myself out in a way. It was always me. I was always a singular salesperson. I was always really good because I always went to the top. I've mentioned this before. I have a very simple formula for success, which is who's at the top, what are they doing, how did they get there, can I model that, can I adjust it to fit my personality, and then can I do better than them? That's just always been my simple formula to success. It helped me whenever I sold gym memberships with Michael Reese at Bally Total Fitness 20 years ago. He was the best salesperson, so I did exactly what he did. I modeled him until I developed my own method and that fit my personality. And then I, was able to beat him once or twice. Not that many, but once or twice. And same thing whenever I got, into cell phones after I got out of the military or back from deployment, got into cell phones. What did I do? Immediately went to the top. Who's the best salesperson? How can I model them? How did they get there? Worked that way. And then whenever I went into pharmaceuticals and financial services, and that was it. So I wanted to follow that same formula for success into real estate, but I wanted to say, okay, who's at the top? What are they doing? How did they get there? How do I model that? How do I adjust it to fit my personality? And can I do better? Well, in 2020, it was, and where did I go wrong? That was the other question. Where did I go wrong? How did, the pandemic come in and which shut down all the schools and shut down my business? And I think there's probably several ways that I could have salvaged that. But at the same time, I was also ready for a change. I'd been in there for 5 years. Again, I don't talk about it a lot just because for the sake of time. But there's a whole nother backstory to that. It wasn't just COVID, but it was a very, very bad business partner that really shut that down. So, but I also was, relied on them at that time. And that's the other portion of a partnership is that, I didn't understand completely the ramifications of the contract and how, they had just a very slight upper hand, and how that slight upper hand allowed them to really take absolutely everything from me. And so that was something else I didn't want to get into. So I was also reluctant thinking about, getting into a partnership in the first place, even though I just gotten out of a bad one. But I was still thinking, and me, I do fall on the optimistic side, and I do believe in the good in people until they prove otherwise, until they show me otherwise. And then even that, I still believe in forgiveness. So it just depends on even the people that, have done me wrong in the past. I don't hold that grudge. I do think it does motivate me, though, sometimes. It does motivate me because they say success is the best revenge. And so I don't want to hold a grudge, but, that hurt on my last deal, my last business with that partner. And whenever they took everything, it really, really hurt. And it hurt for some time. But I also use that as motivation to do better than I had before. And again, because success is the best revenge. And I thought about it, really thought about a bunch of ways that I could make sure they knew I was successful. But actually, when you get to that point, it doesn't matter anymore. It's like they're not even a factor or a thought. It still pops up from time to time, but also so does my illness and my sickness before, and my deployments to Iraq, and, being in a combat zone. All that stuff still pops up in my head from time to time, but I have to just continually work past it. It's definitely not as weighing on me as it used to be. So moving into this, I knew I did want to partner with somebody because I was willing to do the transactional side. But at the same time, I thought, man, if I could partner with somebody and I could really focus on content and marketing and business development, then that would really be something that I wanted to move in towards, because it was a different time in my life. Again, 41 years old, I was looking at, I'd been in one-on-one sales, for the last 20 or so years. And that's where I saw, okay, well, if it was just myself, I was always the one out there running around, running the appointments, meeting people face to face, and then I had to start over and do it all over again. Again, nothing wrong with that, but at the same time, if you don't have some sort of system or a process or other people in place, then that is what will happen, forever. So this time I thought, okay, if I can find a partner and then also scale accordingly, because I also didn't really ever hire anybody before. I always kind of did my own administrative, my own accounting, my own bookkeeping, all that sort of thing. I will say, even though I did well, I still had a very limited mindset whenever it came to spending money to make more money. I was more about making money and then kind of keeping it as well. And so I never, I saw hiring somebody as an expense versus as an asset. So that was something else that I just had to shift my mind on, that, whenever I come in, that was one of the things that I wanted to do as well, is I knew I was going to need to put people in place. I didn't want it to all depend on myself. So those were just the things that I considered before making the move. And then at the same time, going back to the model of success, which is what are people doing, I had to take a look and say, okay, well, who's at the top in the real estate industry? Well, of course, Michael Reese, who I've known for 20 years, was at the top of his game, but he's also been out of production for 10 years, but I know how he made his business back in the day. I mean, he was probably one of the best postcard marketers on the planet, and he knew how to do that very well. But I looked at Michael and I said, okay, I know I do not want to be the best postcard marketer on the planet. That's for sure. And then there was Jay Kinder, who's also been out of production for quite some time. Jay Kinder's best friends with Michael. So I knew Jay Kinder. I'm like, well, what did Jay Kinder do? Well, I don't know. He hammered FSBOs and expireds and listed 570 homes in 1 year. Well, I was like, well, I'm not sure I really want to call FSBOs and expireds. Although Jay had the script. He could easily give me the script. And Michael could have easily given me the best postcards to send out. But that was not something that I really wanted to do. And so that's where I was like, okay, well, barrier of entry, social media, that should be pretty, I can break into social media, see if I can find a gap. But again, looked around, looked at, everybody was really kind of talking about Facebook, Instagram, especially TikTok in 2020. It seemed like every real estate agent would go to sleep and then wake up and they'd have 10,000 followers. So there was a lot of noise around TikTok. And I know agents that are successful there, but whenever I looked at those platforms, again, didn't seem to really fit my personality. So whenever I discovered YouTube and I learned that YouTube was a search engine and not a social media platform, that really, I felt like that kind of fit my personality as well. And so I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do that, then also I still need to find a partner. Whenever I started out, I started working with, I did work with somebody in the beginning to kind of how I could do that. Now, here's the thing on partnerships as we move into this. Nothing out there says you have to directly partner with somebody right away or immediately or put it on paper. But also at the same time, you need to have a clear understanding of how the roles and responsibility of what you're about to move into, who's going to do what do you expect from each other, and what do you expect from yourselves. But also, it needs to be at a 50-50 partnership as well. I don't think any other percentage in a partnership really works well, because if somebody does 60-40 and they say, well, I kind of do this a little bit extra, that person that has 40% eventually will develop some sort of resentment. Or you don't want that person to have a mindset of, well, I only have 40%, therefore I'm only going to give 40%. If you want somebody's 100%, they're going to need 50% of the business. But at the same time, you don't have to make that legal from the very beginning on paper. You can work date. This is what Travis and I joke about, is work dating. And initially, I knew I needed video editing from the beginning, video in general. And so, I looked at somebody to say, okay, well, if we work together, if you can handle the video part, the editing and the filming and things like that, then I'll make the content. But also, can you handle the transactional side? So that was the agreement. That was the handshake. But you can work date. Okay. So the same thing. If you're going to date in the real world, you can work date. If you're going to date for relationships, you can date for work. And that way you can, and real estate allows you that opportunity, I think, which is really unique, because you could do a transaction, you could split the commission, you could do a 50-50 split or whatever the case may be. And so there's a simple way to divide up that money in the beginning. And you can do that through referrals. And so referrals is a great way to work date somebody. There was actually three different agents I kind of work dated in the beginning. Travis wasn't the first one. One of my good friends is a real estate agent as well. But he made all of his money from Zillow. He worked Zillow leads, and that was something else I didn't really want to do, but he loved doing the transactional side. He didn't want to do marketing either. So that's the one part, is I found people that wanted to do the transactional side and necessarily did not want to be on video or do content or things like that. So I found 3 different agents at that time to kind of start out with. And one of them had some video skills, so I thought that could be a benefit as well. So then as leads started to come in, then it was, I divvied them up, passed out a couple to this agent, to that agent, and to this agent. And so it was to see, how do they work? How do they work with clients? How do they work on follow-up? How do they work on customer service? How do they work on communication back to myself? And that was a test. And see, that's the beauty of creating content or lead control in the real estate business, is that if you control the leads, that's going to give you opportunity to be a little bit more picky. If you're someone that's looking to partner with somebody that controls the leads, then that's going to put you at a little bit of a disadvantage, I would say, because really, people are coming for the leads. I mean, coming for that aspect. That's the draw. That's also how you're going to build a team. If you just build a team based on your vision and values, I mean, that may work for a short amount of time, but if there's not some sort of benefit that goes back to the team, like a lead source or opportunities for them to grow their business, then probably won't have a team that much longer or for very long. But the thing is that gives you the opportunity. Once you build this up, and that's what I like about YouTube, is it is a gradual build. It's not a get rich quick. It's not like let's turn on a Facebook ad, which anybody can turn on a Facebook ad and you'll probably get 2 or 3 leads the next day. But again, are those leads even in the market? Are they really interested? Are they just being nosy or just filled out the form just because? So YouTube is a gradual progression and a building standpoint. So you're not likely going to make a video and get 5 calls the next day. You're not going to make 2, 3, or 4 videos and get calls the next day, probably. I mean, for us, it took 30 days. I would say that's still relatively quickly to build an organic lead strategy. But for us, it was 30 days before the first call came in. But we had 48 subscribers, and we had, that was it, 48 subscribers. But it was $1 million buyer that called us off of that first time. And so that showed the power of the value of content over the vanity metrics of subscribers and view counts. Now, subscribers and view counts, I do believe matter, but at the same time, our main goal was, can we make the phone ring, period. So as I divvied out some of those initial leads, then I got to interact with these agents, even though a couple of them were good friends. And one of them I didn't know as well, but wanted to try it out. You get to learn very quickly, I believe, somebody's work. Go through a couple of transactions with an agent, and I think you'll find out real quickly, is this somebody that you could see yourself working with for the long run, or was that transaction or two a nightmare just for you, depending on where your role was in that transaction. And so that was the case. Working through really with those first 3 agents. The transactions got completed. Actually, 2 of the agents were able to complete a couple of those transactions, but they were not pleasant for me from the communication standpoint, from the, one of the agents just, felt like I was, even though I never heard from them, I would just reach out, even like on a weekly basis, just kind of like, hey, just checking in, seeing how things are going. And then whenever they got under contract, I knew they got under contract. And so if I checked in there, they became very, irritated with me, trying to stay in communication with them. I'm like, we agreed to splitting the deal on that. Actually, I believe I even gave them 60%. I was just going to do 40. And again, I did that with the premise that, hey, there's more leads to come. So I know an initial referral is probably going to be 25 or 30%. But this is something else where you have a discussion with somebody who'll say, look, I'm looking for a 50-50 partnership on this deal, or if it's the first deal or 2, I could do a 60-40 or something like that. So you can always negotiate that to work it out, whatever works best for you. But I think, done a 60-40 where I got 40%. And so anyways, one of the agents just, got irritated about keeping me up to date. And then especially whenever they went under contract, went in their name, under their system. They were with a different brokerage than I was as well. And so then all of a sudden I realized, well, how do I really track that? And if they're getting a little testy with me, just trying to, keep up with what's going on, then, my concern was, could I get cut out of that? Could I get, make my referral fee doesn't come back, or, whatever the case may be. So if it's with somebody in there, especially if they're at a different brokerage, that's a very tricky thing. So just be mindful of that. If you're going to refer, a client or something to somebody in a different brokerage. Second of all, one of the agents really dropped the ball on a couple of the clients, figured out that they weren't returning phone calls and weren't, communicating with the clients. And then whenever I checked in with the clients, we had lost like 2 of them. And even though those clients never reached back out to me, I had made that connection, given them to the agent, and then found out too late that agent did not maintain good enough communication with them and caused them to go elsewhere. So you see, by the process of elimination there for the first couple of agents, it did not work out with the people that I initially had interest. I had interest in partnering with them. But whenever it came down to it, it didn't seem like we had a good connection or good communication, or maybe, they weren't the right people to me. And I can't speak for whatever was going on in their life or whatever was happening at the time. I just knew for myself, I don't think this is a good fit, and so that's why I kept looking. Now, a next couple of transactions came in. What was funny is one transaction came in was I ended up doing, but here's the real story. And this is something that we don't really talk about a lot of stuff that happens because of, if we talk on stage or things like that, there's extremely limited amounts of time. And we could talk about hours. about this story. But what's funny is I had booked a month-long trip to Belize. I have property in Belize, and I was about to start building on a project in Belize, and I was going there for a month, and this was already kind of planned out whenever I started the channel. So I started the channel December 5th, 2020. This was planned out in March. And I will say not the best time timing wise, because more calls started to come in, people started coming in town, and I had just given out these leads to these 3 different agents, and none of them had really worked out. Well, a couple of days before my trip to Belize, I just made the decision that I wasn't going to go. And, I had rented a short-term apartment while I was going to be there, instead of like just getting a hotel room, and I was past the cancellation fee on that. So I believe I lost all the money on that. It was a couple $1,000s that I'd rented on there. Flights, had to do a credit on those, and then something else. And what happened too is I have Airbnb. I converted my shed in my backyard into a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment, and that stays rented pretty much 27, 28 days a month. Pays for my mortgage. Very simple little 1-bedroom, 1-bath in my backyard. Well, this was something I was going to try. I was like, well, if I start splitting some time, because this has always been kind of a dream of mine, is to have this property and, start building in Belize and have something there. I thought if I could split my time, I want to test out renting my house on Airbnb to see how that works. So I put my house up on Airbnb, and it rented by 2 people for the entire month. So like one person booked it for 2 weeks, and the other person booked it for 2 weeks. And then that was going to pay for everything, right? That was going to pay for my Airbnb in Belize. It was going to pay for my flights. It would pay for all my food. I mean, it was very lucrative. And I was like, oh, that's how you pay for your vacations for free. But I just wanted to test that out, and it worked, So my house rented. And then whenever I decided a couple of days before, I was like, this is too early. I'm not in the best position to leave right now. And I was really gaining momentum on the channel, and I felt it was way too risky to leave for a month. And I just felt like I'm going to be out of touch. I'm not going to have a good finger on this. I haven't found a good referral agent. And this is either going to be the death of my channel, or I'm going to stay here and figure this out. And I made that decision, even though it cost me a couple of $1,000s. I made that decision because I didn't want to. I really felt it would kill the channel. And what happened was I had met Travis back in December when I initially started the channel. What's funny is we randomly met over at Michael Reese's house one day, and I never really go to Michael's house. He hadn't moved to Puerto Rico at this time, but I never really go over there. But I happened to go over there one day, and Travis was there working with Michael on a couple of things, and we randomly met. And we just kind of chit-chatted for a minute or two. I thought he was kind of a cool guy, and that was it. Well, in February, I believe, January, February, he reached out to me because he saw what I was doing on the channel, and randomly, we jumped on a Zoom call. He's like, hey, I want to start a channel as well. Do you think you could help me out? I said, sure. Even though we had no ties to each other, and he would have been competition in Dallas at that time, I was willing to help. I was like, yeah, let's jump on a Zoom. And so that's where we jumped on a Zoom, and that's where we kind of have a little bit more of a discussion. And he mentioned, it was probably late February, because that's probably, And so I said, he mentioned something. He's like, man, I wish we could just partner up. And he's like, I just want to sell homes. I mean, this is what he started telling me. He's like, I just want to sell homes. I want to get out there. I want to close some deals. I want to make this happen. And I could see his excitement, and how he and we started. I started to learn his story, and found out that he had just went through a pretty bad previous partnership as well, and he lost quite a bit. I mean, a lot of people don't get to hear Travis's story, but he lost everything. I mean, he literally sounds like it sounds like a country song when you hear his story, because he lost his truck, he lost his house, he lost everything. I mean, you're talking about his truck got repoed, got kicked out of his house, had to move into this small apartment that he could barely afford. I mean, it's pretty intense. And so he was like, he was just motivated, but he always stayed positive, always looked for the future. And so as we got to know each other, and that's whenever I was like, man, I was like, I can't go on this trip. It's just too soon. But I don't have anywhere to stay right now. And I was just going to rent an Airbnb because I couldn't kick the people out of my house, because they hadn't rented my house. So I was looking for somewhere, and Travis said, hey man, why don't you come stay at my house? I've got an extra bedroom. I'd love to kind of just brainstorm and chit chat on this YouTube stuff anyways. And you got an extra bedroom. I got an extra bedroom at my house. I'm not going to charge you anything. We'll just hang out and do some work. And that's what happened. So during the month of March in 2021, I did that because my house was rented. I went and stayed over at Travis's house for a couple of weeks, actually about 3 weeks, because what happened is the second guest ended up modifying their reservation to get out a week early. But over those 3 weeks, I was at Travis's house, and then we started to work together, and leads started to come in, and Travis was like, let me work a couple of deals. I mean, he was just excited and, on me about, and I was like, all right, well, let me refer a couple of deals over to him. And that's where things started to fall into place. He was, he could negotiate deals. Even though he was brand new in real estate, he had an extensive sales background. He knew how to communicate and how to talk to people and how to talk to listing agents, and was starting to get deals accepted. And that's how we got our first 2 deals under contract in March, was over at his house hanging out. And then from April, we closed those first 2 transactions. Of course, I went to my house, but things really went well on those first 2 transactions with Travis. So then I was like, all right, well, here's some more leads and here's some more leads. And he started to handle those accordingly. So we worked together for a couple of months there going forward through the summer. We the next month we closed 3 deals, then 5 deals, then 7 deals. And then Travis was like, hey, man, let's partner up. And I was still very reluctant because of what happened in my last business. And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm there. But another month or 2 went by, and I think somewhere around August, September of 2021, I was like, all right, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it legally. We're going to sit down with a lawyer. We're both going to go through this. We're going to map out our exit strategies. So even though things are good right then, and that's the best time you want to map out your exit strategy. If you're going to go into business with somebody, you want to map out that exit strategy whenever you both like each other. Because if for any reason you don't like each other down the road, it's going to be a lot more difficult to work through that. But if you make everything very clear in the beginning about, hey, if we're going to split up and something happens, because you never know, you may split up not because of disagreement. Someone could have a significant death or illness in the family, or whatever the case may be. There could be other outside interference. It doesn't have to just be that you don't like each other. But if it comes to that, you want to have a very clear, defined exit strategy, which is, you get this, I get that, you handle this, I handle that. We split this account this way, we split that account this way. This money goes here to you, this money goes here to me. So we mapped all that out. And even though that was pricey to do that in the beginning with a lawyer, and that's what people would look at, and that's probably what I would have looked at before I know what I know now, is I would have looked at that as, oh, that's expensive, I'm not going to do that. But the problem is if you don't do that, it's going to probably cost you a lot more money in the back end. So this time I was willing to spend the money to make sure that we have all of this aligned. We're clear on our roles and responsibilities, and that we have our exit strategy in place. And so from there, that's where we signed that agreement, even to the spending point. Here's the deal. Like we cannot even spend over a couple of $1,000s without approval from the other person. So, according to our agreement, and we're in Vegas one night, it's like one person cannot go out and have a night on the town and the craps tables and everything. Neither one of us are that way. Neither one of us are gamblers. I'm just using that as an example, but you can't just go out and spend, our threshold is $4,000. Like, you can't go out and spend more than $4,000 without the other person's consent. So if Travis is going to spend $3,000 on an ad campaign or something like that, and he could probably spend more than that. I'm not going to be down his throat about it. But if it comes to sizable purchases, we're going to have an agreement about that. And so that way, we keep each other's spending in check. And so those are the types of things you want to map out. Who owns what digital asset? So of course, a channel is a digital asset. So if you were to split up, who's going to maintain ownership of that? Or how do you maintain ownership of that? Or will it be sold? Or what's the situation? Or how does that work? And so if you take the time to map all that out in the beginning, when you're both in a good mood and like each other, that's the best way to do it. And again, you don't have to split up because of a disagreement. It could be because of an outside force. So that's whenever we understood. Now, here's the other thing is I believe you need to be in clear alignment on your vision and values with your partner as well. But you also need to have different strengths. And that's something where Travis and I complement each other very well, is that we are very strong in different areas. So now that can also be frustrating sometimes, because I'm a little bit more organized and live and die by my calendar. Travis is a little bit more of a free spirit. And so that does come into conflict sometimes about meetings and showing up and being on time or being at certain places. And, but at the same time, I have to understand that not everybody's like me. So if you can accept, and I'm not going to force him or try to train him into being better. And he actually is better now than when we started, because he sees me as an example, which he appreciates. He's like, man, he goes, I really appreciate how well you're on top of your schedule. Because really for me, it is my schedule controls my day, but everything's planned out accordingly. So he appreciates that, and he has gotten better. But at the same time, I know that I can't force him to do that. So I'm going to focus more on his strengths, which is what I really love. There's a book called Strength Finder. I believe it's called Strength Finder, but you do an assessment just like anything else. And there's, I think, 10 different strengths, maybe 8, and it tells you your top 2 strengths. But the whole premise behind the book is that if you can focus on building on somebody's strengths, you're going to make them stronger. You're going to make them even more better. You're going to make them even more unstoppable, as to where most people tend to focus on the negatives of somebody or somebody's weaknesses. And most of the time, somebody's weaknesses doesn't come naturally to them, is not a good fit. They're not interested in that, And so if you try to really work on your partner's weaknesses, you could just bring them down. If they're performing at 90%, could you get them to 100 or 110% or 120% by focusing on their strengths more than just trying to focus on their weakness? Because if you focus on their weakness and they're at a 90, you may pull them down to 80 or 75 or even 60, because now they're over here working on something that they're either not interested in, not good at, not naturally good at, or could care less about. And it's just bringing them down. It's probably sucking energy from them. So for me, it's just one of those things where, and I know there's things about me that I can improve for him, but at the same time, it's just one of those things where I say, okay, I ask him, man, it would help me out if you could help me on being a little bit better about this. Or if you're not going to be there at a meeting, that's fine. But, give me a heads up, because anytime I get on a meeting and it's a paired meeting, guess what people ask? They're like, oh, is Travis coming, or is Travis going to happen, or is he going to be here? And I, if I say, well, I don't know, I would rather say, actually, he's doing something else. He's doing a showing. So that was where we came to a mutual agreement where, hey, man, if you're out showing a property, you get caught up, you're in a meeting that runs long, anything like that, just communicate, let me know. So that way, if I jump on this meeting that we're doing together, I can know, and we can move forward, and we're not sitting there killing, 5-10 minutes waiting to see if you're going to show up, or texting you or anything like that. So you work on a compromise. And so I think those types of things really come into play whenever you're working or thinking about going into a partnership with somebody, because it's just very critical to make sure that you can get everything in line. But I do believe we're in a very fortunate position in real estate, because of referrals and commission splits and things like that, that you can easily test the waters with somebody before going that route, but also have a true understanding of where do you both want to go. And that's the thing, is Travis and I are very aligned in vision and values and where we want to go. But again, we have opposite strengths, but that also means that where he's strong and I'm weak, and where I'm weak, he's strong. But I shouldn't focus on his weakness, because I'm like, well, that's my strength. So I just need to up my game more in my strengths, and I should be able to make up for his weakness. And if he can up his game and his strengths, then he can make up for my weakness, and therefore we can work together accordingly. And so I think that's what has allowed us to, grow and scale accordingly. On top of that, whenever it comes to the team, is that was the thing that I wanted to put in place from the beginning, was the right people. It was not looking at people as an expense anymore, but as an asset, as a value. And this goes with anything. I always say, conferences, marketing, advertising. Anything that you invest today, it's very, very difficult, I think, to understand the true value of that later down the road. But a lot of people look at today's cost versus tomorrow's value. And I'm always trying to think in tomorrow's value. At the same time, it's very difficult to quantify tomorrow's value. I can't go to a conference today. If I go to a conference today, I know it's going to cost me, $500, $700, $800 for a ticket. I know it's going to cost me several $100s in a plane ticket. I know it's going to cost me several $100s in a hotel. And I can see all that monetary expense up front, but what I can't really calculate is the value on the back end. Just like getting the opportunity to speak at Build. We spoke about how that was a whole series of events and going to different conferences and continuing to meet people, the right people, and building relationships and getting to know people, and then getting invited to other places to speak. And all of that was a compound effect leading up to the opportunity to speak at Build. So if I would have looked at any one of those conferences or networking opportunities or traveling as an expense right then, I could have never been on that stage. And so, but now what's the value of the stage? Well, the thing is I can't, at Build, you can't pitch from stage, you can't sell a product or a service. So now if you could directly correlate the return on that investment, right? Now I do know that since Build, I've had a lot of people come to me and say, hey, I saw you speak at Build. I want to know more. I want to learn more. And then that could do that. I'm not necessarily tracking that, but I know the value is there. But still, the relationships that were built from that, the content that was produced from that, all of that is invaluable in my opinion. It's invaluable. And so I can't really place, the monetary gain from that as well. Now, yes, could we sell a couple of courses or some video editing or something like that? Sure. But still, even if there was a little bit of profit, say we made $2,000 or $3,000 profit, whatever, if you break it all down, I think the value is far greater than that, than just a monetary aspect. So for me, that's what I'm looking at, especially with people. Can everybody do what I do 100%? Not likely, but they have other strengths, and that's what I'm hiring for. I'm hiring for my deficiencies and my weaknesses. And even though they may not do something the same as I do, if they can do something else even better, then it's worth it. And if they can take things off of my plate, then it's worth it. And it's very simple. I know the calculation, which is if you want to earn $1 million a year, that's $500 an hour. If you're going to work, I believe that's right at 40 hours a week, your time is worth $500 an hour if you want to make $1 million. Or if you are making $1 million, then you probably don't have an issue hiring people. But if you're trying to get up to that point, if you're trying to get to your first million, that's $500 an hour. And so you have to look at everything. Is this worth my time? Should I do it myself? Or is paying somebody, even if somebody's $75 an hour, which is, that's a chunky price. You got to ask yourself, is it worth it to have that person do it for this next hour, 2 hours, hour and a half, whatever the case may be? Then we got to look at that opportunity. But also this day and age with VAs and global access and the internet, you can find really high quality work. Now, it takes some digging sometimes, but you can find some really high quality work for very, very low cost. And, VAs are very invaluable. We got some of the best VAs on our team. I tell you what, it's unbelievable what some of these VAs can do, how good they are at what they do. But that's not all VAs all the time. So I think that might, hopefully that helps out a little bit. Krissy, did I miss anything there? Did you fall asleep yet, or were you probably doing something else?
No, I mean, I'm always double tasking, but no, it's, and the thing that I always say about especially bringing on team members and everything too, I think it comes down to a lot more attitude than it does even skill set. And I think that's important for people to keep in mind is like, you can train up when it comes to skill set. You can't do that with attitude and work ethic. So when it comes down to it, you really have to find somebody who's willing to put in the work, put in the time, and, compensate them accordingly. So I love everything that you said, though, about finding a partner that is aligned with what you do, but not necessarily the same as you. So the goals should be the same. Skill set should be different than what you're specialized in.
Well, my man Justin, I'm sorry, Justin. I was going on my little rant there, so I didn't notice you pop in here. If you're still there, I mean, I would love to hear your perspective on. By the way, are you a partnership with your wife, or do you have somebody else in the business? I know you run a very good team, but do you have a partnership structure just with your wife, or do you have somebody behind the scenes if you're there? My man Justin, are you there? All right, we'll come back. We'll come back to Justin here in a little bit. If you could DM him, Krissy, just let him know, or see if he's available, or if he comes back on. Sure. We'd love to hear his perspective on there. Sherry, it looks like Sherry's on the phone too, so we can't get to her. Throw some questions in the chat though, if you have any questions in the chat, or you can definitely raise your hand and come up. Oh, okay. We got some spam in there. I see that. That's nice. Okay, but otherwise, I'm also happy to call it a day. If there's, let me see. Oh, Justin said give him a second, so we'll give him a minute. But yeah, other than that, I think that's what's really helped us out. But I do agree with what Krissy said. We look at that too whenever we're looking to partner with people. If we're going to partner with people. At our brokerage, that's something that I always, we have those individual calls with each person because I want to make sure we're a good fit as well. First of all, you got to want to do some video. I mean, if you don't want to do video, we're probably not a good fit. I mean, we're not. If you want to be a good cold caller, I'm not that person. I can't help you be a good cold caller. Now we partner with some really great people that have some good scripts and good coursework for that, so you can gain access to that, but and which we let people know too. But at the same time, I can't really teach that skill, but I can definitely help somebody with video. But yeah, work ethic and attitude, that definitely is the game changer, because just like Krissy said, we can develop skills. You can develop skills on video. In anything, I believe, right now, if you want to. Now, also, that's the key point. Do you want to? The thing is that if video is not your thing, you absolutely hate video, you've got two choices. You either, power through that and work through it, or you decide to go a different route. And there's nothing wrong with going a different route. You may see people being successful on video, but that doesn't mean you have to adopt that. I believe you should figure out what fits you and your personality more, and you never know. Some people love cold calling. They love that, and that's their thing, and they couldn't get on video, and they may not be an in-person type of networker, and so when they get around people in person, they may feel a little bit uncomfortable, but for whatever reason, they love making calls, and that's just the way it is. So we want to make sure anytime we work with somebody that they want to do video, because we can teach skill, we can help them out, and that they have some sort of they want to do that, because then we can work with them. So I'm gonna jump back over to my man Justin. Justin, are you back in? You back in action?
Sure am. What's up, Levi?
What's up, brother? Hey, man. I'm not sure how much of that you caught, but just wanted to kind of get your perspective on your business, if you don't mind. I mean, of course, share what you're comfortable with. But I'm assuming you're in partnership with your wife, or is that completely separate, or do you have another partner that we've never heard of? How does your business work?
It's 50-50, my wife and I. So we're the sole owners of everything, right? So we were from the jump. We had a couple partnership opportunities, and we just chose not to go with any other partnerships because just don't really trust anybody like I trust my wife, right? I think partnerships can be a great thing depending on what they are and how you want to utilize them for the growth of your business. But I think the biggest mistakes people make in partnership is they don't have the offboarding conversation at the very, very start. What does it look like for you to end your partnership, right? And I think a lot of times people get into partnerships and they have different end games. So I think that's the reason why Shannon and I always wanted to own everything outright, was more so that our end games are very, very much in alignment, right? So that's the only thing I'd say when it comes to partnerships is make sure you both have that conversation of what it looks like to end the partnership as much as you're excited about kicking one off.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, Sherry, are you with us? I saw you were on the phone there a little bit. Are you with us?
So, no, I am here.
Okay.
I am here. Actually, so my name is pronounced Sherry.
Okay.
So I know it's a little tricky. So I have to say, I finally have snapped out of it, and I am at this moment sitting down and creating my content calendar for YouTube. Like I've been listening to you guys for a year and a half. I've been so afraid to do it. And I don't know what happened, but I started an accountability group with a few of the other girls that are in the rooms that we're always in, and we're helping each other. So anyway, so I'm just about to take this journey on. I'm excited, actually. I feel like I'm ready for it.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations. What was there a certain moment or something that happened that you said, okay, now's the time? Because I think there's a lot of people in that same situation. They see something, they get excited now that, and then all of a sudden either they default back to what they're doing, or, things are not, they could be comfortable. What kind of, could you kind of talk to a little bit about what kind of, if you don't mind, what made you delay? And then what was the moment that you said, okay, you know what, this is it, I'm ready to get started?
Well, so I'm in the book club, the YouTube book club with Ray Allen. And, and I've done a couple of things with Zach. And so, they were just saying, go on YouTube. And I'm sure you guys have said this 100 times. I'm just a little slow. But, they just said to go on YouTube and see what other agents are doing. And so last week, being that I'm in St. Louis, I decided to pick Seattle because it's far away, and I used to live in the Pacific Northwest, so I very much have that Portland, Seattle vibe still. And so I wanted to see what they were doing out there. And I found this girl who was just super natural, and just the way she was talking was more like how I would do it. And I think she just kind of clicked with me, and she was showing what she loves about Seattle. She was showing weird things about Seattle. She was, I don't know, like I just liked the things that she was doing, and she was still doing the pros and cons, and she was still doing the video tours, but it had that little bit of lifestyle. And I think the thing that really clicked with me was in a room last week with Zach. He was talking about your content pillars. And I'm sure Justin has said this 100 times, Levi, and I'm sure you've said this 100 times. But for some reason, last week, I finally heard it. And so I wrote down, content pillars and like, who am I talking to? And I think that was the thing that I was having the hardest time refining, because I kind of do everything. And it was, do I want to talk to first-time homebuyers, or do I want to talk to my friends where all of our kids are going off to college and they're all going to be ripe for downsizing or buying a condo or moving out of state? And so it really kind of took me a little while. And then last week I decided, obviously, to talk to my friends, and I'll still do some first-time homebuyer content. And I'm also going to do some of the like lifestyle in St. Louis, but I'm going to kind of gear it more towards people that are my age, knowing what my friends like to do. And then we have a lot of really super cool history here. And I thought that architecture history, like it would just be a good short. Like, let me just tell you a fun fact that I'm sure you don't know about this building, because like downtown St. Louis used to be the garment district before New York City. So we have a lot of old buildings downtown that were hat manufacturers and clothing manufacturers and shoe manufacturers that a lot of people don't know about. And the buildings are still there. And there's just some really cool stuff. And I get excited about
stained glass windows and original fireplace mantles in these these historical homes. And so that I know it's kind of all over the place, and that's why I'm writing it down, because I think I've figured out what I want to talk about. It's just how and where. Does that make sense?
Can I pipe in, Levi?
Yeah, of course. Go for it.
Go check out Meet Miranda on TikTok. So she can be your muse or your avatar of the content model to follow. She kills it. So I know her through Sirhan. She was on my podcast as well. So if you want to listen to that Prime People episode, she goes in depth about how she uses her love for architecture and how she went viral on TikTok. So I would just use her for inspiration.
Thanks, Justin. What was it? Meet Miranda?
Meet Miranda. Send me a DM. I'll connect you with her personally.
Okay. And I was listening to you and Ginger this morning on the way to work. It was awesome. I love your podcast.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, I hope we make it on there one day. That would be awesome.
You haven't been on it?
No, you've never invited me.
Oh, come on. I'm sending you the link right now.
I just thought maybe I'd smelled funny or something, Justin. Yeah, so that's awesome. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing is this is something that I like to share because, for us, we approach this very strategically intentional, and that was built a lot around search. And so, and I do believe in you optimize for the algorithm in the beginning, and then you optimize for the audience as you go. But, that was for me. I think, what we found really helped is that, the pros and cons, though, that's a lot of stuff that people are just searching. It's like, is that my passion to make a pros and cons video? Not really, but it's making content that people are already searching for and is going to help me get found sooner rather than later. But as you transition or make the other content as well, then I think you absolutely should do that. And that's the thing is like we do. And then as you establish more of an audience, you're going to find out what they're looking for on top of that, because you unlock community tabs. You can actually ask people to comment in your videos whenever you're making a new piece of content. So I think, experimentation with your channel and what you like is critical, especially to longevity, because if you're doing something that you really enjoy and is a lot more natural to you, clearly I believe that's going to be a lot more sustainable down the road. I think for us though, now, if it's your particular interest, this is just where I would just throw something in there to think about. If somebody starts a channel with their particular interest, nothing wrong with that at all as well, then you just have to think about, is that extremely niche down? And there is opportunity to definitely find an audience there. But that's just the way we went the other route as far as, going with the search-based route in the beginning to establish the audience first and then develop it from there. And now, as we do other things and test them out, it's a lot easier to see how they fall in line with our audience. And we're still trying to work on finding an audience that is, ready to buy or sell real estate. And so that's very key too. But yeah, I think, cause I had this conversation, where was that? I don't know, Krissy, I feel like maybe it was Monday's call. Somebody was talking about history, a little bit about what you're talking about is, I think it's great. I mean, I love history and it's very interesting to know. At the same time, I think with history, you want to really tell a story, because I think that's what makes it a lot more interesting. Just saying, well, this building was built in 1806. Okay, cool. Get it. But if you understand the history behind that building, then and you can kind of turn that into a little bit of a story, I think that's a really cool opportunity. Actually, the building we office out of right now was built in the late 1800s. It's called the cotton gin building because it was an old cotton gin. But then even in the early 1900s, it was taken over, and all of the little offices inside were taken over by a cartographer and a fashion designer and a carpenter. And so now they've made the interior design, like each of the different little conference rooms, based off of the old tenants that were in here in the early 1900s. So there's stories behind that and history behind that. And I think if that gets brought to life, that could be very interesting. Now, on the other side of that, what we also mentioned was think about what is the goal of your channel. Somebody looking to buy or sell, we have to ask ourselves, are they interested in the history of that, or are they looking for information about the neighborhoods and what you like and what you don't like? That's why pros and cons are really popular and are very searchable, because somebody's looking for they're looking for that pros and cons. So just something to consider. I absolutely love how you want to do what works for you as well, but just also keep in mind what's the goal of the channel. And, for us, it was very intentional about making the phone ring. And so the content we do does tend to lean more on the side of search space of what buyers and sellers are looking for versus what that's what I'm just saying. So just something to keep in mind. So if you find balance there, I think that's a really cool opportunity as well, because then that's going to help with the longevity.
No, and I just didn't say that part. Like, I will still do the neighborhood things, and especially like if I'm in an area and there's something historical, I can point it out then. And plan is to still do the home tours, but maybe add in also like some condo tours in villas, areas where I know like my friends might end up, or maybe areas they don't know about. But I'm still going to definitely have the buy and sell. I just wanted to share like my love of the city in a certain way, because I think St. Louis gets a really bad rap. And I know when I moved here from Portland, it probably took me about 3 years to even like it here, because it's just so different.
Yeah.
But now that I'm settled in, like, I want to kind of show it off a little bit. So I will definitely keep in mind what you're saying, because I know that's the whole point.
Yeah, I think that's great. We kind of did that, the other a week or two ago. I did a video on the farmers market. The farmers market in Dallas, pretty cool little popular spot. Doesn't mean anybody's going to call us to buy or sell, and that's not typically what a lot of people are researching whenever they're. That's not typically what people are researching necessarily when they're thinking about moving to Dallas. They're not thinking about, how does that farmer's market look? Is that really cool? Now, I love the farmer's market, and it's got a lot of cool stuff around there, and it was kind of a fun video to make, because also I just kind of did that in between of spending the morning there, having brunch and hanging out and doing some shopping myself. And then I'm always thinking about, just turn this into a piece of content real quick. So it was real simple for me to do that. But again, nobody has directly called us and said, hey, love the farmer's market video, we're going to move to Dallas now. It's the rest of the content, but it still did well. It performed well. It got views. We got some comments. We asked for feedback in the video as well, just to see, and we got a lot of positive feedback. So now I know too, I can incorporate more of that stuff in there. It's not going to hurt the audience. We're still going to get phone calls, which we still are getting phone calls. So that's one of the things. Now, if I would have just made it on Dallas Farmers Market and, the JFK Memorial and just all these other little cool spots that are around town, may attract more eyeballs or more people kind of interested in that stuff, but does it attract the buyers and the sellers? That stuff typically may not, but I think it's a great addition and added into, and especially when the channel is more established and you're generating a lot more business, I think that's easier route to go. So that's awesome. What's up, Matt? Thanks for coming in the last minute. I would love to hear from you, but I think we're just going to cut it off now.
I'd expect nothing less.
Well, what's up, man? Real quick. We got a few minutes if you don't mind sharing. We were talking about partnerships today, and as far as I know, I believe you are running solo unless there's something we don't know. So are you running Are you running solo?
I am, yeah. I like it this way at the moment, at least. Doesn't mean in the future we won't, look to expand some stuff. But yeah, I think, the reason I tapped in here a little bit late too is out of the showing. But I think the partnerships thing is something that's really underrated. I've got a lot of local people here that are now starting to see some of my YouTube stuff, and they're wanting to partner up on some stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So any driving force that for your decision just to go solo? Is that just how you naturally did it? Did you never really have I mean, I know you said you're kind of open to it later, but when you started, you're like, I'm just going to do this thing myself. What was kind of the mindset, and was that a clear decision, or did you just get started and just get rocking and rolling and you're like, okay, I like doing my own thing?
Kind of a little bit of both. My wife was an agent, a buyer's agent on a team. I definitely see the value of having leverage, of having relationships, and obviously watching a lot of, you're a perfect example of, you and Justin are both a perfect example, I think, of building teams and what it can do for not just your personal brand, but the team, culture and environment. And it's one of the reasons I, made a move in brokerage a couple years ago. It's because I felt like that was kind of lacking. But yeah, I think for, as far as the future goes, I just try to keep my options and opportunities open, because whether it's running an office or building a team or starting my own brokerage, I think there's so many different ways you can make money in this business that I don't ever want to be shut off to anything, But I do think the partnerships is one thing that I'm like laser focused on, mostly for my clients, because I feel like I get a couple calls a week about, hey, who do you have in your database that is this or that is that? And more often recently here, it's been, I don't have anyone. And so being able to build those referral partnerships and relationships has been crucial here recently.
Yeah, and that's something that I think Matt brought up there. It's a really good point. Again, here's the good thing about real estate is you can run solo and you have the opportunity to refer out business and still collect on that business. Now, but you've got to find a very reliable referral partner. And that's the other thing. You've got to find somebody solid, because if you start generating more business in one area, especially an area that is not necessarily an area you serve, or your time gets maximized. We were speaking with somebody yesterday that said, their goal is to just max at 3 transactions a month. They're like, look, that's where I want to be as a solo agent. I know if I can get myself to 3 transactions a month consistently, then I know I'm in a position to bring on a buyer's agent. So also, if you're thinking about making that move, understand your threshold, know where you're at, what's your ceiling, what's your limitations, where are you feeling overwhelmed, because 3 transactions a month that's a good living, but at the same time, this person understood. They're like, now can people do more? Yes, of course. We've seen solo agents that can do 10 or 15 on their own in a month, but they're running wild, right? They're maxed out. But this person was like, Levi, I just want to get to 3 solid transactions a month. That's enough for me. That's my well-being. That's what I want to do. And that's really it. And if I can generate past that, then I would be more than happy to bring on a buyer's agent. And that's the other thing. You can be solo in real estate and bring on a team member. You can bring on a buyer's agent that therefore, you can have a team with really one person. It does happen. You can have one buyer's agent. So how your lead flow comes in and how you scale accordingly is really up to you. And with YouTube, it's a gradual progression, but you're going to hit a point to whenever it will compound if you continue to make content at the rate that we have. Now, the thing is that my goal was to squeeze as much out as possible. And I've stuck to 3 videos a week since forever, since we started, and that keeps us consistent, and so, but if you start to scale back, lead flow is probably going to drop down a little bit. So if you're in a position where you're solo and you've hit the max, you got to make those choices too. But you could bring on a buyer's agent or a team member before you partner with somebody. So there's several different ways to go about, a partnership. And a partnership, again, doesn't necessarily have to mean legal and on paper and everything like that. But if you have if I was in Atlanta, I wouldn't have any problem referring business to Matt or to Jeff. I know them as people, but the thing is that now if I give Matt 5 referrals a month or 8, and he's, he at some point he might go, all right, Levi, I don't know, maybe it's too much. But the thing is that you know, it depends on your lead flow, how you're giving that out. And that's where, you know, for Travis and myself, it was just us too. So once he got maxed out, that's when we knew it was time to bring on a buyer's agent. And whenever that buyer's agent got maxed out, that's whenever we brought on the next one. And so, you know, you can scale that accordingly. And you either expand and grow with the lead flow as you continually create content, or you can possibly scale down content. But that doesn't stop. I mean, 2 or 3 of you, or who knows, a lot of your videos could end up going viral. Just like Justin said, I'm going to look up Miranda. I'm not familiar with her story, but that's the other thing is that I know something that who Caroline Choi. So we're speaking at an event in San Diego coming up. And I know one of the other speakers, Caroline Choi, I think that's how you say her name. She started a YouTube channel as well, focused on luxury properties. I believe she's in her early 20s, I believe less than 25 years old. And she said, you know, her story was she went into a luxury broker in California and was like, I want to do luxury homes. I want to do $10 million homes. And that's it. And she said they all laughed at her. And then she's like, she got in to start doing property tours and showing these homes on YouTube. And the next thing you know, she's closing luxury deals. And now she's seen as not just a content creator, but as a luxury agent. And, you know, still in her mid 20s or so, and just killing it. But she created that. Now I'll get to know more of her story as we go there. But that's kind of the cool thing is that, you know, she created content about what she wanted to attract as well. So that's the opportunity at hand.
Hey, Levi.
Yeah.
Can I pipe in, or do you want to close the room out?
No, go for it.
Yeah, so you just gave me a thought, like as you were talking, right? So the reason your YouTube channel popped off and was so successful is focus. You were hyper focused on your niche. You knew the exact intent. You knew the action you needed to take to grow the channel, and you committed to the process, and you are where you are now. I would say everything you just explained is the exact same thing. If people could think about their real estate business like a YouTube channel and get hyper focused on their niche and why they want to do what they want to do, I think it would solve a lot of problems, because people sometimes think, well, I'm going to do what Levi does, and I'm going to work with investors, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do what Glenda does on TikTok. And they do nothing because they're trying to do everything, right? They rather than just picking one and getting focused. And then take it a step further, what you did with the agents, you're not like, hey, I'm going to generate all these leads and I'm going to be the one showing them houses. Like, you knew that feasibly wasn't going to be possible, because to output the amount of videos and do the amount of work you had to do, you had to bring in the buyer's agents, right? I think about it from the brokerage model perspective, right? I'm obviously working closely with Ryan, and I know what Ryan's end game is, and I don't want to be in any type of competition with that guy, because I know the infrastructure and what he's pouring into it. So I'm also very clear on what I'm trying to do. I don't recruit, I don't hire agents, I don't offer coaching. All of those things have just came from me refining, like, where do I fit into this system, and what do I want my life to be? And I'm building my life around that. So I think this is a great conversation for people to realize you got to get focused on your channel topic and what you need to do to make it successful, but your business too. Like, think about it the same way, because it's the same thing.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. And that's it. And it may not be video. It may not be YouTube, but dial that focus, dial it in. And that's something, I think we talked about that on a episode or two ago. And people love to say, well, the average millionaire has 7 streams of income. Well, it was probably one that got them to a millionaire in the first place, and then they brought in the other 6. You know, when they had some money to diversify and understood things a lot better. Because when you go through the process of learning a particular skill set and just going all in, you know, that, like Justin's done with video, just. You go all in on that, like Matt's done with relationships. I mean, you focus on that. He is relationship driven, and so that is it. When you go all in on that, you learn the ins and the outs. It's something that Gary V, he talks about his wine store. It's like none of us would have thought about growing a wine store in New Jersey, like a walk-in wine store, to 60 million a year in revenue, but he thought outside the box. But it's funny, if you ever hear him talk though, he said at the counter, and he said every single customer that came in he would stare them down, watch every move they made, which direction did they walk in the wine store, where were they drawn to, what set, he would just sit there and watch and watch and watch and watch and watch. And then of course he started creating content. That's what he's very well known as, being one of the first ones to provide value on YouTube, by going through wines, and just became extremely dialed in on that one thing of how to improve the sales in his wine store, a physical location that people said you can't sell wine on the internet, you're not going to sell wine on YouTube, and you're not going to do that. But he understood his customer, how to provide that value, and dug in. And so learning all of that is what allowed him to expand whenever he broke off, to expand to his social media company, his what does he do? Sports coaching, I think, or sports contracts, Vayner, whatever that is. All that stuff. I mean, all that came from being extremely dialed in on one area, one effort. So I love that, Justin. That's a great way to wrap it up, I would say. So, Matt, anything you'd like to close out with there?
No, I just know there were a couple people in the comments, and I didn't hear it earlier, I guess, when Justin said, is it Meet Miranda on TikTok?
Yeah, Meet Miranda.
YouTube?
Yeah, meet Miranda. If you want to send me a DM, I can send you the link.
Okay, yeah, thanks for... go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think there were a couple people asking. I got connected to her on TikTok. It's funny, we were just having a Nickelback session. She posted. But anyway, yeah, Meet Miranda on TikTok.
Did you say the magic word Nickelback?
TikTok, I think it was yesterday or today. I can't remember. But it's playing a Nickelback song, and yeah, it's pretty funny. She's hilarious. I love her.
I don't know if that was just me, but I think you cut out there. Something. The internet gods are hating on Nickelback as well, I suppose.
Can you hear me now?
Look at his photograph, Matt. Look at it.
I love it. All right, cool. All right, well, thanks everyone for their contribution today. Thank you, Krissy, for joining us. Sherry, right? Sherry. Justin, Matt, as always, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week, guys. So have a great day.
Thank you for joining us on today's podcast. If you're interested in partnering with us to access our YouTube course and coaching all for free, schedule a call at 5starstrategycall.com.